We'll start jumping on. What is your name? What is your name? Patricia Cohen? Hasn't called or anything? I think so. Mr. Pearson? Never get probably en route.
How are you? How is Dirk Bentley?
Okay.
Are you just so happy you can hardly stand to be here?
The August 22nd workshop is called to order at 6:02 p.m. We have a quorum with Mr. Rosales, Mr. Ramirez, Mrs. Woodruff, Mr. Pearson, Ms. Duenas, and myself, Shane Haggerty. Secretary Duenas, will you please lead us in the pledges and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
Using your electronic voting, may I please have a motion on the order of the agenda?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the order of the agenda.
Ma'am, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Dr. De La Torre, do you have reports for the board?
Good evening, President Haggerty, members of the board, esteemed guests. We have 3 reports this evening. The first report that will be presented to the board is the Celebrate Freedom Week Civic Engagement, Student Voter Education, and Registration Initiatives with Ms. Georgina Perez. If Ms. Perez is with us, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Eastwood Trooper. Graduated in 92.
Thank you. I'm not sure that I need the microphone, but thank you for, yeah, I'm kind of loud. So let me get to, how do I pull up my
Coming.
webpage? I thought I was third. It's online. It's a web page that I need to get to. Yes, sir. Oh, thank you. That's okay. It's not a problem. Teachers know how to change on a drop of a dime, right? All right. Okay, and so when I want to change screens, I can just change
Go
them.
ahead and just explain yourself real quick.
Oh, it's not there.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. My name is Georgina Perez. I am the member-elect for the State Board of Education, District 1, which is all of West Texas, 40 counties, and most of the Texas-Mexico border. Other than being very excited about talking about preparing our students for civic engagement tonight, I want to let everybody know, I think I know everybody, most everybody here, and I was just speaking with Miss Bobby Russell. It's always exciting for me to present to Ysleta YISD because I was a student of YISD, and then I taught for YISD, and now I sit on the state board, and I get to be here and present to you guys again. So thank you for having me, and let's begin. Okay, so what I'm here tonight for is preparing our students for civic engagement. And the goal is using the same efforts and dedication that we implement college and career readiness, we want to expand our student councils to student government associations to implement civic engagement and the preparedness to participate in our democratic society. Not because you turned 18, because the truth is when you turn 18, I don't know how many things you care about, but I don't think going out and voting is top of your list. Unless we prepare our students at a very young age to understand the importance of voting. But more than that, the importance of understanding who our candidates are, what they stand for, who deserves our vote, and to go one step further, putting our students in a position to put themselves on a ballot and run for elected office and represent their communities. What we have designed is a web page that is completely free. And I'll tell you, Weebly is one of the things I learned from Micha Villarreal and your innovations department. And now we have 10 web pages under Weebly. So thank you, YISD, for that opportunity as well. Under election code, our high school administrators are required to register all eligible students at least twice a year. This is a law. There are no teeth to this law. However, we do want to explain to our students that being in compliance with the law is important. So we have coordinated with National Council of La Raza, with Southwest Voter Registration Education Program, and El Paso County Elections for them to come into the schools and do this. It simply takes a phone call. So to stay in compliance and to make sure that our eligible students are registered to vote, principals don't have to take extra time or do any extra work to be in compliance. Education code tells us that there are certain things that we will teach during the week of September 17th, which is Constitution Day, and that's typically when we celebrate Freedom Week. However, our Board of Trustees does have the authority to designate another week. Under our TEKS, we have Chapter 113 that tells us that the government course that is a half credit is a high school graduation requirement. So what we have done is put every component of Freedom Week based on election code, education code, and TEKS in the click of a mouse. And all of these are primary source documents from the Library of Congress, from the National Youth Rights Association, from the National Constitution Center, from NEA, over 50,000 websites, printables, lessons, and curriculum free for teachers. We have the high school principal support, we have the education partners, and we also have a way that teachers can share with us their wonderful lessons that they felt worked beautifully and that we can share statewide. So if you don't have any questions for me, that is pretty much the summary of my presentation this evening. It's pretty great, right?
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm curious, what has been the result of your efforts in terms of numbers?
Last year, Senator Jose Rodriguez's office under the Youth Advisory Committee began the Student Voter Initiative. And so there is a brief explanation of how this worked out. And I want to say their numbers are close to an additional 5,000 votes that were specifically counted out of eligible voters in YISD. Yes. It's good. It's great because not only do students realize that they have a tremendous power at the click of a screen to vote, but their voice is valuable, and it determined a bond that is 100% in their favor, supporting positive student outcomes because now they're going to have better programs, better buildings, better facilities, better everything. And it wasn't even something that they were going to get for themselves. It was something of a legacy that they were leaving behind for the next generation. And as an 18-year-old, they feel amazing to know that they have that power at the tip of their fingertips. And so this goes one step further, the culmination being the student voter registration. But we go all the way down to pre-K to talk about how very important civic engagement is from a very young age.
just to carry it forward, is this effort being done throughout the state of Texas?
I hope so. That's my goal. That's
Since you
what I'm
sit on the
trying to
board, that's
accomplish. Yes,
the
sir.
reason I'm asking.
Yes, sir. Region 19 is an education partner with us, and so they are supporting us going through the other service centers. Houston, Pasadena ISD, Baytown, Goose Creek, the Director of Education in the city of Houston, Juliet Stipech, she is on board with us. So the goal is to introduce this statewide. National Council of La Raza and Southwest Voter Registration Education Project are also supporting us statewide.
Ms. Duenas, you have a question?
Thank you.
How often do you go to schools talking to students about this? Have you come to our area, our region 19?
No, ma'am. I began working with the senator's office, I want to say in May last year when it was the Student Voter Initiative. And one of the requests that they had for me was, can you vet our lesson because we want to run it through a teacher? And then number two, how can we expand this with the curriculum? So over the summer, when students are not in school, I developed the web page. And so I'm going through the Board of Trustees now as one, because I want your support. And number two, I want the invitation to go into schools. So because of the timeline, no, ma'am, this is brand new. There has not been a school that has specifically invited us to come in and present this because school just started today.
So you work with Senator Rodriguez's office? Is that-
These two programs work in collaboration with each other, yes, ma'am.
Oh, through his office or you're
The
part of his
student-
employment?
No, I do not work for him, no.
Who do you work for?
She's the incoming representative for the State Board of Education for our.
So it's the two offices working together in collaboration.
Okay. So this is your first year?
Hasn't started
I will take the seat in January, yes, ma'am.
Oh, in January?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I think both of your interests complement one another. And one of the things that Mr. Basurto and I and the senior leadership team discussed when we were working with Senator Rodriguez was that it couldn't be done in a selfish, self-serving way. In other words, going out and encouraging students to participate in
Right.
the election for the purpose of considering the 2015 bond was not the goal. It
No.
was not an end to the means.
No.
It was to continue that same momentum and expose current students to the importance of participating in the electorate process. And that's something that we've made a commitment to do and something that Mr. Basurto and the principals understand we will continue doing.
So my goal here is completely unselfish. This is a seat that is a volunteer position, so I do not, whether you invite me into your schools or not, I still don't make any money off of this. But to expand our civic engagement, right, and to expand student council to a student government association where they are inviting candidates in, where they are vetting candidates themselves, bringing the community from their feeder pattern and members abroad into the high schools to participate in the electorate process, as well as because they are developing the forum and the debate questions themselves, it provides them with both sides of the table experience as to how to put themselves on the ballot eventually and run for office themselves. And that's my goal, civic engagement from a very young age. Plus, I think it's just really great that this is a wonderful website with primary source documents that are free for students and teachers. Plus, it's a support tool for our administrators to be in compliance with the law, and it creates no additional work. As a matter of fact, it relieves them of a couple of responsibilities that other agencies are willing to take on for our schools.
Anyone have any further questions?
I just want to make sure that we're going to get engaged to the fullest, in as much as the voting records in this, and I speak for this county, well, not speak for anyone, but the fact that the numbers speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
They're dismal in certain areas.
Yes.
And this is just a matter of making our young people aware
Right.
of the power of the vote.
I agree, Mr. Rosales, because I talk to a lot of students across the state, and one of the things I hear a lot is, I don't know how to vote, I don't know who to vote for, I don't know why to vote. And as an adult, I take that very personally, because that means, from my perspective, that means as an adult, I have failed to invite them and educate them and show them why they should be voting and why it's important. So this is one way that I can fix the error of my ways.
I know one frustrating misconception that I've run into often, and maybe that's something you can address also, is I don't vote because I don't want jury duty. I don't register to vote because I don't
Well,
want jury.
as soon as you have a license,
Right.
you're signed up for jury duty. So regardless of voting or not, you're already signed up for jury duty.
But again, I think there's that misconception
Yeah.
out there that
That's one of the questions that 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds typically have, because they think that as soon as they turn 18, they get, their voter registration card, and they think that all of a sudden it turns into jury duty. The truth is, jury duty comes from the Department of Public Safety, from your driver's license.
You know, one of the, see if I may, one of the saddest things that I've encountered out in the streets, because I'm usually out in the streets, and this is there's a sentiment of people that are in their, let's say, 18, 19, 20. My vote doesn't count.
Right.
And so why should I vote? And then you ask them, well, how about your parents? Well, my parents don't vote either. And so it to me, it's an extremely important part of what we have possibly have not done.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that we're beginning to take this initiative to encourage people.
It's a misconception that your vote doesn't count. It
Exactly.
is. Because one of the biggest things that students ask when we go, or personally when I go to schools, why is there so much testing? I said, because the people that are elected, right, because we're talking to high school students, and this is always something, particularly at the end of the year when it's time to graduate, the first thing that's on their mind, or a very prominent aspect of high school graduation, is the test, right? And I said, because the people that have been elected believe that this is what you need to graduate, high school graduation requirements. You want to know how many people from El Paso County participate in school board and state school board elections? Fewer than 3%. So your vote does absolutely matter. And the truth is, the people who elected for those policies to be in place are the people who showed up. And you stayed home, so you get what you get, because you must have been in agreement with the people that were voting, correct? And of course, the answer is no, because they're high school students. And I tell them, well, okay, then clearly your vote does count.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions? Ma'am, thank you again.
Thank you.
The second presentation, President Haggerty, members of the board, is regarding the 2015 bond-related contract advisory services with R.L. Townsend and Associates. And this evening, you get to meet members of that team and hear a little bit more about the work that they're about to undertake on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Very good. Good evening. My name is Rich Townsend. I'm the co-owner of R.L. Townsend and Associates, and we prepared a PowerPoint slide to go over with the board members and administration, and of course everyone in the community that is going to see this video. I started R.L. Townsend and Associates company back in 1984. It was a one-person firm. Today we have about somewhere around 17 people, counting myself, that specializes in nothing but doing construction auditing services for organizations all around the country. We have a large client base here in the state of Texas. University of Texas is one that we've been working for on an ongoing basis. We've probably audited $5 billion, $10 billion worth of projects for them since 2001. And Texas A&M University and Texas Tech University we did some consulting with them. So anyway, we have worked with higher education, also with school districts here in the state. We've been hired to work with the Austin Independent School District to do exactly this kind of bond oversight auditing, construction auditing for them. We've been hired by the Houston Community College, who has a similar size bond program, doing very much the same things that you were doing. We've been hired and working with them for the last 3 years. And as a matter of fact, two of our principals of the company I have on the screen, they're key personnel from a company. I just want to introduce them briefly. Under my name on the PowerPoint slide, you have the Rich Townsend, but next to me, more importantly even, is our president, Debbie Townsend. Debbie, if you'll stand up. Debbie is the audit director of our company, really manages all the auditing work that I just mentioned doing, and she's going to be the the audit director in charge of really the production of getting the work done for you. I'll be involved in the background as much as I need to be involved, but we do have people that are smarter and brighter and better looking, that sort of thing. Anyway, next, Debbie Townsend over there. Anna, if you'll stand up. Anna Nicodemus is a former director of internal audit for a variety of organizations, and we're lucky to have her join our organization. She's a great resource, and she's going to be part of our administrative audit manager to get the work done. And supported by our staff that I mentioned, the other 10 to 12 people that we have in our firm that will be resources to work on the various auditing activity that we'll be doing for you. So what I prepared for you, and I'll go to the next slide here if we can get that to work. There we go. It was really just an overview. I looked at our contract that we have you, and I picked pieces out of the contract to cover with everyone tonight. And so the next slide that's on the screen, I covered the left-hand bullet there already, block with our key personnel. Over on the right-hand side talks a little bit about how we're going to also integrate with some of the YISD internal audit staff. So our contract provides that we will do most of the auditing. And I have 80% of the overall audit effort, if we do everything for the 5 years working with you, will be provided by our resources from Plano, Texas. And then the other 20% would be provided by internal audit staff here. So we'll have some boots on the ground, if you will, here in town. We won't be here full time, but we'll be back and forth as often as we need to be to do what it takes to get the job done effectively for you. So that's kind of a mix of the two staffing participations that's spelled out in our contract. I put down a note on the bottom of that slide as well, which also talks about the resources, kind of show you that, we brought the key people from our team. Our contract says the principals, which would be myself and Debbie Townsend, would be responsible for doing as much as 30% of the overall work will be our involvement. So the experience that we bring, the 30 years I have, Debbie's been with our company 20 years leading, and she's been president since 2012. So her and I will really managing and bringing this thing together from our staff. And then, of course, Anna, and we have other senior auditors that are the same as Anna's level, will be another senior auditors, the 50% of our resource. So supported by some of the other staff that I mentioned. So I want to just highlight those couple of things. I might go ahead and talk about the words I put on the bottom of the screen there. I put our 3 words in knowledge, perspective, and partnership. So I want to talk about those things for a minute. What we do bring to the table is from a construction auditing standpoint, from the work that I've done with organizations, the training, the consulting, we kind of know what's really supposed to be done to manage construction projects like this. What's a best practice? We'll be looking. If you're doing the best practices, we'll be telling you, yeah, that's good. You're going to keep that up. If you're not doing best practices, we'll be saying, okay, we probably need to talk because there's some things that you can improve. So that's part of auditing. And that's the knowledge and background that we bring that we'll be sharing with all of the community here as we work for the board, et cetera. Perspective. There are auditors and then there are auditors. We happen to think that we bring the kind of perspective that you're looking for. I think that's why you hired us. We're pleased to be here for that. But, to know what's important, that perspective helps us know what's important to bring to your attention, not waste your time on small things, but to make sure we're all focused on, at least from our standpoint, what's really important for you to get your bond program and deliver what you promised to your district and hopefully deliver that within the budget. So we'll be kind of being an oversight, working with all of you here to help see that you're on track. And from an auditing standpoint, if not, we'll be bringing that to your attention. The partnership word that I have there is very important to us because we do view that what we do is really a partnership with really all of you. First, we view ourselves as partners with the board. We talked to most all the board members today that any concerns, any questions, any comments, just contact us. Communications with you and that partnership, very, very important. The Bond Oversight Committee, also we view ourselves as a partner with the Bond Oversight Committee. We'll be briefing them from time to time periodically, make sure they know what's going on, what we're doing for you, and delivering, the services that the organization administration and VLK and your contractors are signed up to do. So anyway, the partnership thing, it will require us to be partners with your management team, your administration here. We have to learn how to work with them, and that's part of what we started today, really meeting with everyone to find out what's the best way to work with all the different, groups that are here and get this job done effectively for you over the time that we work for you. So that's what it will take. And working with Mr. O'Neill, and where's VLK? Are they here tonight? Yep, and there we go, John. So in some respects, those folks will be auditees. So when we're auditing them, it's, that's part of it too. But in other respects, we'll be auditing for them. We'll be auditing the books and records of contractors for all of you. So you have cost-plus contracts with your construction manager at risk contractors, and part of what you've signed us up to do is do the construction auditing of that. That's something that a program manager typically doesn't do, architects don't do, owners do it. Some of them do it by hiring companies like ours, like I mentioned, some of our customers, to audit the books and records of contractors, and we'll be doing that for as many of them as you ask us to do. So let me move on to the next slide. I just mentioned the other resources, so I have a brief list, and these are the people that we'll look to support the key personnel that we brought with today, that we introduced you to. I have our senior auditors listed there, some of our assistants, et cetera. And then the next phase really summarizes the three things that are broken down in our contract, the phases of the audit. Pretty much phase one started today. Phase one, I call it a risk assessment there, but better described as phase one. So basically, we're going to spend time from today in the next month or so, month or two, we're going to be looking at everything that the district has done to spend bond money and contract for bond money, control it, budget, et cetera, get up to speed with where you are, and talk with you about our observations there. So we'll be delivering a risk assessment report at the end of that phase. Hopefully within the next 90 days, that would be done. And if there's anything that needs to be addressed, we'll be discussing that with whoever is appropriate to discuss it with. If it's administration, we'll talk with them. If it's board we need to talk to, we'll talk to them. Just whoever on the entire team here of this partnership that I mentioned, we'll be visiting with to address anything that needs addressed. So we'll be looking at the contracts, for example, that you've signed. If there's some way to improve your contracts, we'll be giving you feedback on that. If there's some controls that you don't have in place that are important, we'll give you that. So that's part of what we're aiming to do in the phase one. And then that'll be extended into phase two. And let me talk a little bit about our approach on auditing. And I've discussed this with many of the folks that we met with today. Our approach to auditing is really doing what we call real-time auditing. So it's pretty much auditing from today through the end of your bond program in real time, trying to keep up with what you're doing, looking at how you're awarding contracts, looking at change orders that are being processed and approved, looking at invoices coming. We're not going to be in the approval process. That's your job. That's management's job to approve these things. But we're in an oversight role. If we're going to audit, some people audit later. Some people audit after the fact. Our philosophy is, well, if you can actually look at something real time and prevent the problem, and work with management and board, et cetera, to prevent the problem, it's more important to do that than come along a year later, 2 years later, and say, oh, by the way, what you did back here wasn't very good. Should have done something different. And gee, what you did cost you $1 million or $2 or $3 or $5 or $10 million. Well, that's not good 2 years later. So our goal in auditing, this real-time auditing, is to help you, do smart things, which I know you're already doing a lot of smart things, but do smart things and bring our knowledge and add to that to value-added auditing, et cetera. So it'll really continue into that phase two. Once we get the initial assessment done, phase two will be pretty much constant, keeping up with you as you go. I mentioned to some of the groups, the administration and VLK we talked about, they're going to be getting GMP proposals from their construction managers. They're going to be reviewing and approving those per your process. We've suggested that we actually take a look at those GMP proposals at the same time they're looking at them to see if there's anything that needs to be addressed that they hadn't thought of, that we've learned when we've worked from our other organizations. So it's kind of a synergy of bringing all of us together to get the best result for the district. And then the phase three is really when we get into, and typically it's a little bit later, and maybe sprinkled throughout the life of the job, but when your construction contractors are going to be audited, they'll have a contract closeout review, we call it. So we'll be looking at the books and records of the CMARs who have those cost-plus contracts to make sure that they build you properly for things like labor and labor burden and materials and equipment, that they build you per the contract, that they didn't bill you things that were in excess of their reimbursable costs. That's a big part of what construction auditing does, is help you not pay money that you shouldn't pay. So We'll be doing those closeout reviews as these jobs come to conclusion. Usually, we'll start a construction contract closeout review about the time, maybe starting around substantial completion. So if a job's getting finished before that contractor gets his final payment, we want to be in position doing those closeout reviews and reviewing the records for you. And we would propose that we do, some auditing, depending on it. If you have a $90 million contract, that's going to get a lot more auditing attention than a $200,000 contract. It's going to take more to audit, obviously, but it'll be balanced, and the budget that we have to spend for you will be spread out over the life of the job. The next slide I put in here was just more from our contract. This is the wording that's in our contract, talks about risk assessment. I think I've covered that, talks about evaluating the language in your contracts, et cetera. There's a much more detailed list on the slide there of what contract compliance testing looks like, looking at the various practices, budgetary controls, pretty much everything I mentioned already, and reporting to you on that as we do our job for you. So that'll be the phase 2. Like I say, we'll spread that out over the life of your project. And then phase 3 is the closeout audits that I just mentioned. You can see the wording there, ensuring final accuracy of billing, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to avoid, and I'm sure you won't make the same mistake, but there's one school district I mentioned to the board, at least most of them, one school district that got overbilled on $130 million worth of CMAR contracts. They got overbilled approximately $6 million, $6 to $7 million, and that wasn't identified until the closeout audit was done. Now, if we do things right, I'm sure you're on the right track already, but if you're not, we'll be trying to help you get there. But so that won't happen. You won't overpay somebody $7 million by not having proper controls in place. That particular school district had to go back and do a big battle with that contractor after they did their audit to get a refund. I think they got a refund check of $5.9 million a couple of years ago. So anyway, that's part of what we'll be doing in the deal. And then we have communications. A couple of slides here on communications. This is a list from our contract that talks about how we'll be working with the board, pretty much getting your approval to do this audit work that we've talked about. Several of you had asked questions, now, what are you going to do when you find a problem? It talks about right in here in our contract, we're required by contract to give you immediate written reports of anything significant that needs to be addressed, and that's of illegal acts, et cetera. So we don't usually find those kind of things, but if that comes to our attention, we see something, obviously it's going to get reported right away to everybody who needs to know. And that finishes out that list. I want to wrap this up. The next slide talks about internal audit. So Champagne is going to be our internal audit coordinator. As we mentioned, we're going to be working with her and her staff to resource this. And she's going to help us coordinate all of the different meetings that we had, just like we had all the meetings today. And we'll be keeping her informed as we do the work that we're doing. So we're really primarily working for the board, the oversight committee, administration, and coordinating with all of you. So I think that outlines that. And I have one last slide here that talks about, wrapping up here, conclusion and questions, mostly questions. So I wanted to now stop and I guess thank you for, again, this time to visit with everybody in the community. We're looking forward to working with you. If anyone has any questions right now, we'll take that and get that on the record.
Certainly. Does anybody have any questions? No, sir. I think your presentation was pretty thorough.
We're all good. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Look forward to working with you. Good night.
Thank you. The final presentation tonight is a presentation regarding Thomas Manor Park presentation by R. Allen Schubert. Is Mr. Schubert with us this evening? Welcome, and also with us is our council representative, Miss Lily Limon, Troop for Life.
Always with you, huh? Since this morning.
Yes,
By the way,
ma'am.
thank you. Congratulations. What a magnificent opportunity for young women
Thank you.
today to be present and to know the great vision that is taking place in the district. I am here primarily to tag team a little bit with Alan Schubert. We have an incredible opportunity with the construction of the new Thomas Manor School, which borders on Thomas Manor Park. We have an opportunity to recreate that entire area. And so on behalf of the city, which we already have a little bit of funding available for some improvements to the park through the Neighborhood Improvement Program, We're going to put those funds on hold until the time when the El Paso Water Utilities comes in and does this complete reconstruction of this park. It is a ponding area that will now have a new life. So our hope is that working with Ysleta and working with El Paso Water Utilities and the city of El Paso, we're going to be able to have a magnificent site that's going to bring out the best. There's no reason and there's no thought when we look at the increasing taxes of our community to think that we would go out and we would spend an incredible amount of money simply on playground equipment that then gets closed down at the end of the day and isn't reused. That we need to think of ways that we can multi-purpose the use of this. How can we best place the parking to accommodate not only park users, but also as we're looking at employees that are going to be at this school. So I'd like to introduce Tracy Novak, who's our Director of Parks and Recreation, who's here as well. And then also Dion Mack, who's the Interim Director of the Quality of Life Improvement Projects, just so you could see a face and a name and know that the City of El Paso is very, very interested in collaborating with you as you begin that process of this rebuilding of this magnificent school, and then also our commitment to work with John Ballou and Alan Schubert from El Paso Water Utilities. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today.
Good evening, Board President. My name is Alan Schubert, for the record. I am Vice President of Operations and Technical Services with El Paso Water. What Ms. Limon said is absolutely true. What's in front of us is actually a very uncommon opportunity. It's very rare that things line up in an order where you can collaborate really so easily. What's happened is that really, a few years ago, when we started the stormwater utility, the Thomas Manor Park Pond was seen as a very high priority for many reasons. One is the pump station is almost as old as I am and hasn't worked for many years. The park itself is oriented kind of strangely where the ponding area, which isn't exactly attractive, actually faces nights. So it's not a very user-friendly place from that perspective. And the real issue is the flooding issue and managing stormwater. So we actually started out a couple of years ago starting to develop this project on our own, looking at, okay, what do we need to do from a stormwater perspective? This just kind of illustrates what I had said previously about what the park currently looks like. You may recall that several years ago, the city did a median improvement project on nights, and it's a beautiful project. It came out very nice. And it fronts along a park that could use some sprucing up. So again, Thomas Manor Park was constructed in the 1960s. The original construction did include green space and a small pump station. Now the park was always designed to function as a pond. It's always flooded and was supposed to. Obviously with the pump station not working, that's problematic. So when we started the project, we identified pretty quickly that we were not just going to be able to replace the pump station. We were going to have to replace the park because we were going to have to make the park 2 levels and deepen it to some extent to contain the full volume of a 100-year storm. What we came up with conceptually is very, very similar to the Saipan Park Pond, for those of you that may be familiar with it along the interstate where Saipan is. As we and Parks started working on it, we came up, El Paso Water actually funded the concept design that we have so far. A plan to reconstruct the park with 3 tiers, relocate the ponding area off to the side where it's not between the park and nights. A reliable stormwater pump station, which we want to put more adjacent to the sewer lift station there, kind of out of the way. Improve the lighting, and then, park tables, canopies, some amenities. So as we started developing this with Parks, the Ysleta Independent School District passed a bond issue. And in that bond issue was a complete reconstruction of Thomas Manor Elementary. Well, what an opportunity. The schedule's almost perfectly aligned with what we're trying to accomplish and what the school district is trying to accomplish. So we met on a preliminary basis with Pat O'Neill and some of your staff to discuss what our opportunities are for sharing amenities. We can share parking, we can share playground space, we can share green space, and we can actually provide for drainage for the school for a price. The punchline to all this is we have funded a little over $3 million, a little more than that actually, on what we think is a little over $4 million project. Now that's conceptual. The numbers always go up as you get things completely designed. But we're looking for collaboration from the Parks Department. We're looking for potential collaboration from the school district. If we can provide some in-kind things, we can provide parking for some cost. It allows you to take a much more advantage of what is a very small school site and maybe put some of those type of things into our facility, and it all winds up better for everybody. So the proposed schedule is we start design in July of 16, and that's funded. We complete design in February of 2017, bid in August, and construction period in October, which almost, again, aligns with your schedule. Our funding is scheduled for, our construction funding is scheduled for this next fiscal year, which starts in March. And so it will work out very well from that perspective. Again, there's a picture of the existing conditions. And here's just kind of a concept plan of what we have in mind. The pond is moved off to the side so that it's all parked between the elementary school and then along Knights as well. This gives you a little bit of a perspective. These are lines on paper so far. There's nothing fixed in it. Where we've shown the parking may or may not work for a shared parking arrangement if we were to have such a thing. But the idea conceptually is very simple: to make it all better, to fix the drainage problem, to make the park more user-friendly and more useful, to work with the school in a collaborative way so that we can potentially all work together on something that could wind up kind of a seamless project where the school and the park and drainage facilities are all amenities for the community. So on the last slide, I will end my presentation and ask for any questions you may have. Yes, Ms. Dueñas. Good to see you, ma'am.
See you, Mr. Schubert. My question is, you have a picture here. Can you tell me exactly where you're going to have a fence around it, right? Or it's just going to be an open park, playground for the students?
The intent is to have the park open. Now, Parks can speak more to that. The fence that you see is around the deep ponding area. And it's not going to be a chain link fence. It's going to be a rock wall wrought iron fence, very similar to the standards we've adopted that we've used at the Saipan location. And all of the modern things that we've built, we haven't built anything with chain link in a while.
The reason why is because we have another school, Ramona, and it's also shared with the city of El Paso. It is fenced in. And because of the neighborhood, I would rather see a fence in there because there is a lot of dealing with drugs. And so it would be better if we had a fence for our students. That way we can keep an eye on the students and not get, because it is a pretty big park.
Let me make my thoughts perfectly clear. This is lines on paper at this point. We haven't started the public outreach part of this. So we're going to be working collaboratively, I can't say that, in collaboration with the school district to have some joint meetings with the public to try to identify some of those either needs or opportunities or discuss those things. Now, obviously, the park will be lit and probably somewhat better lit than it is. There are some problem areas from a people parking standpoint that we want to either light and turn into parking areas or manage differently, get rid of some issues that people are having. But that certainly could be something on the table to discuss.
I hear that. The reason why I hear it from the neighborhood association in that area. And so that's the kind of problem that some of the parents and the community members address. My other question would be, you mentioned the pump to push out the water, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But from what I hear from the community members is that it doesn't have a place to go. Do you have a connection to maybe the playa drain or some kind of a drain where it's going to be pushed out and not just get stuck in the middle of the community underground?
Yes, we do, and your community is correct. The connection was cut off at some point. We think during the last construction of Border Highway, when
Right.
some contractors were working for TxDOT. So we've spoken with TxDOT. The original station was designed to discharge into a 48-inch line that goes to the river directly. They've given us permission to reconnect that to discharge into the same line, and we're working with them with the time at which that it will take to pump the area down. We're hoping for a 48-hour time frame from the time you have a flood till the time that we can have it drained. But that's some more work we need to do. But the short answer is yes, we've gotten an affirmative reply from TxDOT on allowing us to do that.
Oh, so they do, great.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
wonderful. Because I know that we're in a flood zone area with FEMA, and that's one of our issues. Thank you for
ma'am.
addressing that.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosales, you had a question?
Just a quick question from Mr. O'Neill. Does this impede any of our plans for Thomas Manor at all?
No, sir, we were waiting for direction from the board if this is something they'd be interested in us just taking the next step, just to look and talk. We wanted to get feedback from you all tonight, and that's the reason we invited Mr. Schubert and his group to come and talk. You all tell us, yeah, let's take the next step. That's something we can do.
Can you go over the in-kind portion again?
Well, so, for instance, if you wanted us to provide drainage for you, we would have to agree on some cost that the school district would pay for that. What it would buy you is you wouldn't have to provide retention on your own school lot. So it would be significantly cheaper for us to do that for you, even at paying us for it, than it would be for you to provide your own. That's an example. Parking the same way. We could have shared parking that's actually on the parks property that the school district may pay something for that gives you more footprint for your school. That's just two examples, but there are others. You may recall that we have an agreement with YISD on 2 soccer fields that are at Blackie Cheshire Park that are on city property, and they're your field, so an agreement can be structured any number of ways.
Do we have access to those? Wasn't that an issue a while back?
There have been times when there have been some challenges, but I think at present the relationship is sound.
I guess just to clarify, you'd be charging us to park over at.
Well, yes, we would come up with some agreement where you would share in the cost of that. And then, we'd have to agree upon who uses what and when and how it's managed. It would probably wind up being in the form of an MOU of some kind if we structure that. But I see it as a fantastic opportunity for everybody. The school site is so small for an elementary school that I think it's a real opportunity for you if you're interested in something like that.
Ramirez, you had a question?
Yes, sir. For Mr. O'Neill, so ponding, parking, what other things?
Well, that's what we want to explore, possibly playground, some playground area. But we expressed our interest and our concern with the Parks and Recreation that we'd have to fence this area off because we want to make sure that when students go out, recess, PE, that they are safe. So we'd have to work on that. But yes, sir, there's a lot of potential here. Parking and playground would be the two that jump out at me right away. And then also the ponding area, the drainage area that would be able to build right into the park.
Okay, I see the advantage with that. I guess my other question is for our quality of life bond person. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, ma'am. Dion. Is there money set aside from the quality of life bond issue to pay for any park improvements?
Good evening, Dion Mack. There was actually an allocation, as Representative Lamone mentioned. The Neighborhood Association did a application for what we call Neighborhood Improvement Program. And so they were allocated around $80,000 or so for playground improvement, but are holding off to figure out how we might find a way to work together on this project so that we can maximize that investment. So those dollars have been in place for over a year and a half in terms of an allocation to playgrounds or an upgrade to that space, and those are the dollars that are already in place for this so far.
Did you say 80,000?
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Mack.
Any more questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I have one. I'm sorry. Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, ma'am.
When will this be coming, is this just this be coming to a board meeting or?
Before we take it any further, yes, ma'am, it would come back for your action, but we'd like to just take it the next step. I don't think it would hurt to take the next step. Let's sit and talk to the community, get them involved, and see, and then bring back a proposal to the board. But we would not take any action or make any agreement without the board's permission.
How soon will the community be?
We have a meeting set up for this Thursday at
This- the
Riverside High
25th?
School. Yes,
The
ma'am.
25th?
But if you all tell us this is something you're not interested in, then it turns into strictly their meeting. But if you say, hey, yes, we are interested, then we'll join in the conversation. Also, we saw this as a great opportunity to talk to the community about what is it that you would like to see with Thomas Manor. I know that one of the board members had said that, with the charrette process, it's just a very small group that really gets to participate. And in talking to Dr. Delatorre, he said, well, let's come up with a different idea in order to get more people involved. So we saw this when they offered last week. We jumped on it right away because we can do the park if you all are interested. And if you're not, then we'll just talk about the school. All right, community, what is it that we'd like to see for a new Thomas Manor Elementary?
Sounds good, very good. Being the board member for that area, it sounds very good. And thank you for including the community. They're
Thank you.
very loyal to their schools.
I had promised myself when I left city engineering I would never build another park, and you shouldn't say things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Schubert.
Mr. Schubert and Dr. O'Neill, as long as they have a pump, I'm in. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's
as long as you provide the pump.
That is funded. Our stormwater piece of this is funded, and we're going to build something to replace the drainage regardless.
Yeah, okay.
The issue is it's such an opportunity to do something better. It needs to be a park pond anyway. But and the stormwater utility obviously can't put stormwater money into playground assets and some of those kinds of things. So, regardless of the outcome of this conversation, at the end of the day, we're going to replace that pump station and fix the drainage in that park.
Move on. Do we need a motion or any of that, or will we just go ahead and proceed? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes presentations for tonight's workshop. This time it would be appropriate to review the agenda.
Anybody want to take a quick break, health break? We'll meet back here at 7:05. Thank you. We'll now go over the agenda for August 24th. If anyone has any questions or any discussion on any of the items, please use your electronic speaker button. Saver just went on. Consent item number 1. Consider and take possible action to approve award of YISD solicitation 216048 CSP, Medicaid SHARS Special Education Management System, web-based online IEP services during the period of September 1st, 2016 to August 31st, 2017, with the possibility of 3 one-year extensions for $500,000 from various district funds. Number 2, consider and approve the Support Celebration Freedom Week Civic Engagement Student Voter Education and Registration Initiatives. We'll then move to the action items. Action item number 1, consider and take possible action to approve the updated annual board operating procedures 2016-17. Number 2. Yes, sir.
I checked on 24, and I'd like to have a clarification on that if I can find this darn thing.
Wait, that's on the House bill, isn't it? 105?
Yes, it's on the local superintendent on renewal. I thought we were,
This is action item 1, the board operating procedures.
I thought we did.
I think you're ahead of us.
Am I ahead of you guys? Oh, okay, sorry. Glad I'm ahead.
Yes, sir. Action item number 2, consider and take possible action to approve award of phase number 2 of YISD solicitation bond 03 RFQ BP 15, Parkland Middle School addition and renovations for $1,310,925 from bond funds. Phase 1 was awarded on June 29th, 2016 for $761,491. Phase 2 will be considered August 24th, 2016 for $1,310,925. Phase 3 is expected to be presented at the October 26, 2016 meeting. Together, these phases are combined to establish the guaranteed maximum price. If there are no questions or discussion, we'll move on to the policy action items. Oh, that's right. I already skipped over it. Action item number 3, consider and take possible action to approve amendment number 2 of YISD contract 2016-0318 with MNK Architects to set the compensation at 6% of construction cost, which would be an increase of $362,770. The construction cost has increased to incorporate feedback from the community and staff. This amendment will allow us to deliver the project with enhanced scope, on time, and within budget. Ms. Woodruff, you have a question?
Yes, I have a couple of questions on this one. And there's a couple of things, but I'm just going to go ahead and just throw them out there, and maybe you can help me with this. I'm wondering what would happen if the community input that you're going to be talking about results in changes to the design that weren't approved by the voters. For example, I had heard at one point that they were not going to get a new gym at Eastwood, but instead they wanted to keep the old gym, and I believe that the voters approved, the new gym, a brand new gym for them instead of, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. They're going to get a brand-new gymnasium. It's going to be a state-of-the-art gymnasium, and then we're going to remodel the Bobby Leslie gym, which is currently their main gym. And
I
it'll be a
see.
complete remodel upstairs and downstairs. And that was the big concern, what we heard from the Shredds, is the dressing rooms downstairs, they were in such poor condition. And also we'll be able to enlarge the wrestling room. They have a great wrestling program, lots of tradition. We're going to be able to fix that up. So that's kind of a little bit about the enhancement.
So basically, they're getting what was approved in the bond.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the other question, will this project still stay within the budget, even with the increases? Because past experiences and have shown, and not in this current bond, but in the past, that, we go up several $1 million over what we had promised to spend. And I'm not sure that that's exactly what we need to do.
No,
So-
you're exactly right. And that's one of the things we heard from the voters before it was even approved, was that many of the projects in the 2004 bond went over budget. So VLK's holding us to our feet to the fire. They're being very careful to make sure that we stay within budget. And that's everything we've been doing to this point, is that on time, quality, and within budget. And I was thinking about this just the other day. This is going to be our legacy. You think when people go and look at the placard, they're going to see your all's name, and what we want them to see is a quality product that in 20 years it's not falling apart. It's something that we could all be very proud of. So absolutely, it is within budget, and we will continue to make sure it falls within budget.
Even with this current
Even
change?
with, yes, ma'am. And like I said, that's the beauty of having a program manager that has all these years of experience to make sure that we stay within budget. Because they keep hearing that over and over. We keep pounding it. Stay within budget, quality, and on time.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just click your button real quick?
Yes. The what?
It took away my,
I think you.
yeah.
I think.
Would you like to go ahead?
I think
I'll
Ms.
just-
Woodrow had it from last time.
I'll just time you on this thing. Go right ahead.
Yes. So this project is, I'm sorry, I was having a little bit of computer problems that I couldn't hear on number 3, right? We're on number 3?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is for what project?
This is for the Eastwood High School project.
Oh, okay. Now, I wanted to ask you on that. We will keep it up to update and not go over and with more expenses to it, like we did with Riverside Middle School?
No, ma'am.
It was a deadline, and then we still went over with more expenses to it.
And what we have learned, and this is experience talking, is that when you do a remodel, a lot of times it's like peeling back that onion. You peel back that first layer, and all of a sudden you find a little bit something different. One of the things about when you do a new construction project, you should not have that many change orders. Okay, but if we do, we will come back to the board for permission. So you will be aware of any changes of that nature.
Okay. Now, I also have another question real quick. The amount went up higher. Can you explain why? What was it, 90 or 93? And it went up, and now it's up to 96 or 98?
No, ma'am, it's at the same, the budget has not changed, and I'll let Mr. Klein speak to that, but it has not changed. The amount that was set and approved by the voters is staying at that price. If there was any change, we would get your permission.
Okay.
Good evening, Board, and yes, that is correct, that the budget has not changed. And I don't know what numbers you're quoting, but this does not change the budget at all.
What was the bond for, 93, 90 or 93?
93.
93, but the overall for everything within Eastwood High School, 96, everything associated with high school, which includes the turf, which includes some other things, which includes some other things.
All right, what we're talking, the $93 million is for the rebuilding of the high school.
Yes.
What Mr. Klein is referring to is, remember the athletic enhancements? That was a separate bond issue. So if you add the athletic enhancements on top of the rebuild, then yes, it does go up to that 96. But what was approved is what we're going to stay at, the construction.
Yes, but I mean, is the construction itself, so you're combining all the expenses together?
Well, Mr.
Because the project is just supposed to be what you're bringing for the project, not everything together to where it makes it look more. It's just a matter of working with the amount that you gave us at the very beginning for that project.
Yes, ma'am, what was approved by the voters is what we will spend.
Because it's just more confusing to us and being transparent to our constituents that you're adding more to it without having, it's just a matter of talking to about one project, and
Right.
that's the.
And I agree. Construction for the new Eastwood High School is $93 million, and then there was the athletic enhancements, which was another bond agenda item. That's separate. We should not add them together.
Right.
Because it does maybe cause a little confusion.
Yes,
We need
okay.
We need to go on to Mr. Rosales.
I'm sorry?
We need to go on to Mr. Rosales. It's 3 minutes. Sign up again. You're next to speak, right?
To belabor the point is just, I want to make some clarifications. When the people at Eastwood were given the presentation about the facilities, there was a lot of input from the people that attended, and there was some conversation about the fact that we could get away from having the additional gymnasium, but we had to make sure that we went back to what the bond was told to them publicly. And consequently, yes, we are going to build the other gymnasium.
We're going to build the brand-new gymnasium, then remodel the...
Remodel, that's
Yes,
what I
sir.
was, yeah.
We
But
will-
we are, because through their efforts, you know, there was point made that we could we could get around with just one gymnasium, but that was not what was told to the public. So we went and did what the public wanted. And then consequently, as an aftermath to all that was discussed, excuse me, there was some enhancements that were not added initially to that project at Eastwood. And this is why there's been an adjustment to I guess, comply with the request of the community. And this is where the $300,000 comes in.
And to stay within budget.
And
Bottom
we're-
line, stay
and we're
within
still
budget.
within the framework. And the other part that I want to just refresh our minds with is the fact that having that auditing company that came in today, they are very cognizant of the real-time issues where they can look at things and not wait till things are done. And then we find out that we overspent this, or we spent that, or we were overbilled.
Right.
So this is why, and again, I'm not preaching to you, I'm just kind of refreshing your memory. This is the importance of us having that outside auditor come to us. Thank you.
Ms. Duenas, you have a...
Yes, one last question on this. My question is that, this is just the price for the architecting?
Yes, ma'am. Like Mr. Rosales pointed out, the community, the administration, we've had multiple meetings, and they've asked us to rearrange some things, do some things different. So this is for the design portion. Yes, ma'am. That $300,000 is so they could design those enhancements, those different things that the community has requested. But once again, still within budget. We are going to stay within budget on this project. You all have made that very clear from day one. Quality, on time, and within budget. And we are holding people's feet to the fire.
Okay. So have you had charrettes with the community?
Yes, ma'am, we had 3 charrettes over at Eastwood High School, but we've met with the staff, various departments several times, met with the administrative team, gone over designs, talked about their needs. So we've had multiple meetings, and we've done that with all the projects. You know, the charrettes is recommendations from the community, and it's recommendations. Then you bring back those ideas and start putting them on paper, and then get with the administration to say, is this practical? And then we also use VLK's experience in building buildings. Is this going to be something that's going to last the test of time? So it is a very detailed process.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go into the policy action items. Number 1, consider and take possible action to adopt on first reading TASB update number 105, recommended revisions to local policy BJCF, superintendent non-renewal. Is that the one you had the question on, Mr.?
Well,
Just want to push your button.
But I understand it was totally crossed out. Well, I didn't understand, excuse me, the Commissioner of Education. My copy is not very, it's not,
On BJCF, item number 24.
Yeah.
It looks like it's an incomplete statement. That's what the
Exactly.
question is. For the con.
24.
What happened is they've combined 23 and 24 to read as one.
Oh, okay.
And what it's going to read is failure to fulfill or maintain requirements for superintendent certification unless granted a waiver by the Commissioner of Education. So they've stricken out items from 24, but have combined the two statements into one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Policy action item number 2, consider and take possible action to adopt on first reading TASB update number 105, recommended revisions to policy BQ local planning and decision-making process. Number 3, adopt on first reading TASB update number 105, recommended revisions to policy CLB, buildings, grounds, and equipment management maintenance. Number 4, adopt on first reading TASB update number 105, recommended new local policies CLE, buildings, grounds, and equipment management, flag displays. Number 5, recommended revisions to policy CPC, local office management, records management. 6, still with update number 105, recommended revisions to DBA local employee requirements and restrictions, credentials, and records. Number 7, recommended revisions to policy DFBB, term contracts non-renewal. Number 8, recommended revisions DFFA, reduction in force, financial exigency. Number 9, recommended revisions to policy DFFB, reduction in force, program change. Number 10, recommended revisions to EHBD, local special programs, federal Title I. Number 11, recommended revisions to FDC, local admissions, homeless students. Number 12, policy DED, local compensation and benefits, vacations, and holidays. We'll go into closed executive meeting to discuss with legal counsel regarding YISD versus Robert Scott et al. Cause number D1GV110015556, enforcement of judgment. Second action items will come out of closed session and discuss possible action regarding YISD versus Robert Scott et al. Cause number D1GV110015556, and enforcement of judgment. And we will adjourn. Anyone have any further comments or questions? Yes, sir.
I'd like to, Dr. Latore, I'd like to thank you and the staff for the convocation last week. It was fabulous. It was just great, and what a great job. You brought the whole YSD family together and just made it happen, and a great way to kick off the school year. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. No further discussion or comments? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
For a second? We are adjourned at 7:28.
This is for the 24th.